is the great sense of freedom. And wouldn't you agree, you say, that this great gift of the 20th century to artists was this growing sense that they weren't bound by the rules, they were free. But isn't that what has gone wrong with the 20th century? That the loss of boundaries, the loss of principles of life, the loss of tradition, the loss of convention and order?
I think one could say that's what's gone wrong. But as you know, it's a principle of theology that an abuse should not take away a use. The fact that one abuses something doesn't mean that something wasn't a good thing to start with. I personally like rules, where I feel much freer within them.
Right.
But one should never be constricted by the rules, and I think this freedom is in itself a good thing. The fact that it's gone to people's heads and they've become very silly is very sad. But we hope it will pass.
Were you not offended when you looked at Andre Serrano's Piss Christ? Didn't you find that denigrating of the simple figure of your faith?
Well, actually, no, because I thought he was saying, in a rather simplistic, magazine-y type of way, that this is what we are doing to Christ. We're not treating him with reverence. His great sacrifice is not used. We live very vulgar lives. We put Christ in a bottle of urine in practice. It was a very admonitory work. Not a great work, because one wouldn't want to go on looking at it once one had, to one's distress, seen it once. But I think to call it blasphemous is really rather begging the question. It could be, it could not be. It's what you make of it. And I could make something that made me feel a deep desire to reverence the death of Christ more by this suggestion that this is what in practice the world is doing.
So are there objective standards or criteria for great art? What makes a great painting?
Again, it's a kind of suck it and see reaction. If continually people look and always come away enriched, then it's a great work. But it takes time, you see, to discover this. That it's not just flavor of the month or flavor of the year. That's why it's very hard to make judgments on the works of our own time. We have to wait.
You say somewhere, I forget exactly where, that we moderns are called upon to make a practical and informed choice of the pure as opposed to the comforting. Can you give me an example of that?
I think comforting art is art that is very easy to react to. I might be tempted to say that the Serrano's Piss Christ is comforting art, in that everybody knows exactly what they think about it. They're not challenged in the slightest. 90% of them think it's blasphemous, and a few like me think, well, it might not be. It might be a rather ham-fisted attempt to preach about the need to reverence the crucifix. Not a very gifted young man, but he's trying his best. But that's comforting art, you see, because it's so easy to have an opinion and a reaction. Everyone thinks they can do it.
Jesse Helms would not find it comforting. Yes, I guess in
You
your
see,
definition
yes,
he
you
would
see,
find
he
it.
had an immediate, he thinks he's right. And he hasn't had to think about it. It's obvious to him. And that's comforting. So nice to know I'm right. And there's quite a lot of art, you see, that gives that instant satisfaction of feeling that I know I can judge this without having to look, without having to take trouble. I just know because it's so obvious. That's comforting. Whereas, you see, the real art makes demands.
When you began your study of art, were you shocked by the number of paintings that dealt with the naked human body, with sex, passion, the carnal side of human nature?
It would never have entered my mind to be shocked. I can't think why one should be. Yes, but Catholics believe in God, you know.
Well, I know that, but so American Catholics have also, for a long time, been very, shall I say, wary of public displays of...
Well, obviously, there must be something appropriate. I mean, I would be distressed if I was to see somebody naked walking down the street. I would think it was inappropriate behavior. I wouldn't be shocked. I would feel compassionate towards the poor person. But when you're telling a story in which often the point depends upon nakedness, or one of the great myths, where part of being a goddess you can afford to be naked and unashamed, this is very appropriate. And the artists do this with great reverence and delight.
Well, there is a serious point here in the sense that you talk on camera before millions of people so unself-consciously of nudity and carnality and passion, all in the art that you observe, that one of your critics, Germaine Greer again, scoffs at the notion that a consecrated virgin can talk to us about these things.
Well, see, why does she think that anybody should not delight in the creative work of God? I mean, it's to me, it's very illogical. God made the body. And this suggests that sort of God made mistakes about certain parts of the body. You know, that unfortunately, he's done these shameful things. We must do our best to cover them up. This is not the faith. The faith is that God looked at his creation and thought it was good, thought it was beautiful. We're made in the image of God. And there's nothing amiss in any part of the human body. But again, it should be appropriate. There's, to me, something far more salacious about these sort of sniggers and criticisms than in just a Christian delight in God's skill.
But you have to, surely you understand. I mean, you are a very sophisticated woman. Well, I mean, for example, what would the nuns in your convent think if they heard you discussing the naked little slave girl in the tomb of Ramesses in one of the series, or where you compare the breast of the matron to the firm little apples of everybody else?
Well, they will see it because the BBC will bring down a television screen and show it to them.
Well, what will they think?
They'll think as I think, that this is quite a good description of the bodies we're looking at. None of the sisters has ever raised an eyebrow at anything I've said or written, because they're not cramped by this false idea that sexuality is something wrong. It's something we have sacrificed. The vow of chastity doesn't mean you just don't get married. It means that sexuality is something you give to God because you want to be free for something else. It's a wonderful gift. And I delight that people have it, though it's not a gift for me.
There's a moment you're talking about on
Oh,
Grace,
the Angle, yes.
the bather of Valpincon. The back and light plays upon this whole beautiful body from the long neck right down to the cleave of the buttocks, as though he sort of licked his paint,
Yes.
adoringly over every part of her. And to me, it's a wonderful paradox that this great classic painter, the virtuous Ingres, should be one painter who so celebrates the beauty of the human body. I mean, that's a very sensuous, almost erotic moment.
Yes. But you see, he was the great classicist, and yet he's the most sensual of painters. Wonderful. In fact, I didn't want to do that painting. I wanted to do one of his great portraits, Madame, is it Le Morticier? One of those great icons of a female. And the director was very keen that I should do this one. And I can remember in the Louvre looking at it, and suddenly I realized what made it so great. You know, he loved the back always on. It was his big thing. That isn't the only back that he savors. And often he makes them much longer than they are because he can't have enough of the back, so he added on more vertebrae. So they're wrong physically, but they're wonderful visually. And that's marvelous. It's a highly charged painting. It's vibrant with the sense of what it means to have a body.
And it's a spiritual
Yes,
painting.
because God gave the body, didn't he? God made the back. Ingres just improved on it by giving it a few more vertebrae.
In one of your